Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the colony ship Enterprise, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 50 years traveling through space, they had finally reached their new home. 2,000 colonists slept in the lower decks, waiting to wake up and start their new lives on Kepler 442b. "Sir, we have incoming ships," said Communications Officer Helen Garcia, her voice tight with worry. "Multiple contacts approaching fast." Jake moved to the tactical display where Chief Security Officer Ben Clark was already studying the readings. "How many?" Jake asked. 12 ships, maybe more." "They're big, Captain, much bigger than us," Ben replied, his hand moving toward the weapon controls. The alien ships surrounded the Enterprise within minutes. They were sleek and dark, shaped like giant arrows cutting through space. Jake had never seen anything like them before. No human had ever met aliens before this moment. "They're sending a message, Captain," Helen said, adjusting her headset. "It's in perfect English somehow." The main screen flickered and showed a tall, thin creature with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, and when it spoke, its voice was smooth like oil. "Greetings, humans. I am High Commander Fextel of the Zephyrian Confederacy. We welcome you to our territory." Jake stepped forward, trying to hide his surprise. "I'm Captain Martinez of the Earth colony ship Enterprise. We're peaceful explorers looking for a new home." Bextal's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, but it looked wrong somehow. "Of course you are. We know why you have come so far from your dying world. We can help you find a perfect place to live." Chief Science Officer Lisa Thompson moved closer to Jake and whispered, "Something feels off about this, Captain. How do they know English? How do they know about Earth?" Jake nodded slightly but kept his eyes on the alien commander. "That's very kind of you, Commander Vextal. What do you want in return?" "Nothing at all. We simply wish to be good neighbors. Your species is new to space travel, yes? We have been exploring these stars for thousands of years. Let us guide you to safety." Dr. Ryan Cooper, the ship's specialist in alien life, was taking notes on his tablet. He had studied every theory about first contact, but none of the books had prepared him for this. The aliens seemed too helpful, too ready with answers. "Captain," said Tactical Officer Amy Foster quietly, "their ships have weapons pointed at us. Lots of them." Jake felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face calm. "We appreciate your offer, Commander. Where would you suggest we go?" "There is a beautiful world called Nexus 7, just a few days from here. It has everything your people need: water, good air, rich soil for growing food. We will escort you there personally." Ben Clark was studying his security screens, watching the alien ships move around them. They were being herded like cattle, he realized. The aliens weren't giving them a choice at all. "That sounds wonderful," Jake said, forcing a smile. "We accept your kind offer." Vextel's strange smile grew wider. "Excellent. Follow our lead ships. Do not deviate from the path we show you. For your own safety, of course." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same worry in their eyes that he felt in his chest. "Lisa, I want you to study everything we just recorded. Find out what you can about these Zephyrians," Jake ordered. "Amy, keep our weapons ready but hidden. Ben, start organizing security teams quietly." "What about the colonists, Captain?" Helen asked. "Should we wake them up?" Jake thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let them sleep until we know more. But be ready to wake everyone quickly if we need to." As the Enterprise followed the alien ships toward Nexus 7, Dr. Cooper noticed something strange. The aliens kept studying, their ship with scanning beams like doctors taking X-rays. They were learning everything about human technology and biology. "Captain," Cooper said during a private meeting in Jake's quarters, "I don't think they want to help us. I think they're studying us like lab animals." Amy Foster nodded. "Their ship formations are military, not escort patterns, and they've been jamming our long-range communications since they arrived. So we can't call for help," Jake said grimly. "Not from Earth. But I managed to set up a delayed transmission system," Helen added. "If something happens to us, a message will automatically send back home with everything we've learned." Lisa came in carrying her analysis reports. "Captain, I found something disturbing. The energy signatures from their weapons match theoretical designs for slave ships. These aren't explorers or diplomats. Jake felt cold fear settle in his stomach. They're slavers. Or worse, Lisa said. Some of the scanning patterns suggest they're interested in biological experiments. The journey to Nexus 7 took 3 days. During that time, the aliens sent over cultural exchange teams who asked endless questions about human society, biology, and psychology. They wanted to know about human weaknesses, fears, and how humans reacted to stress. Dr. Cooper noticed that the aliens seemed surprised by some of the answers. They expected humans to be more afraid, more willing to submit to authority. When Security Chief Clark talked about human military history, the aliens looked confused by stories of humans fighting impossible odds. They think we're weak, Cooper told Jake privately. They've probably conquered other species that gave up easily. They don't understand humans at all. On the 3rd day, Nexus 7 appeared on their screens. It looked beautiful from space with blue oceans and green continents. But as they got closer, Amy Foster spotted something that made her blood freeze. Captain, look at these readings. There are structures on the surface. Big ones. And energy. Signatures from multiple species. Jake studied the data and felt sick. It's not a colony world. It's a prison. The Enterprise landed in a designated area surrounded by high walls and guard towers. As the landing ramp lowered, Jake saw the truth. Nexus 7 was filled with different alien species, all looking defeated and scared. They were all prisoners. Vextal appeared on the landing platform with a squad of armed guards. His fake friendliness was gone now, replaced by cold authority. Welcome to your new home, humans. You will find it very educational. Jake looked around at the other prisoners and then back at his ship full of sleeping colonists. The aliens had made a mistake, though. They had given humans time to prepare, time to learn, and most importantly, time to get angry. The hunt was about to begin, but the aliens had chosen the wrong prey. The Zephyrian guards forced the humans out of their ship at gunpoint. Captain Jake Martinez watched as his crew and colonists stumbled down the ramp, confused and scared. Most had just woken up from 50 years of sleep and didn't understand what was happening. Move faster, weak creatures, growled a guard with scars across his gray face. He pushed elderly colonist Mary Watson, making her fall to the ground. Engineer Kevin Blake helped Mary to her feet, his jaw tight with anger. He looked at Jake and nodded slightly. The captain understood. They were both thinking the same thing. These aliens had made a big mistake by showing their true nature so quickly. Subcommander Krethak stepped forward, his forearms spread wide. He was smaller than Vextal, but twice as mean. Listen carefully, humans. You belong to the Confederacy. Now, you will work, you will obey, and you will serve. Those who resist will die. The aliens began separating families, pulling children away from parents and husbands from wives. This was their standard method for breaking new prisoners. Destroy. Their connections destroy their hope. But humans were different from other species the Zephyrians had conquered. When they tried to take little Tommy Garcia from his mother Helen, every human nearby moved closer. They formed a protective circle without anyone giving orders. Interesting, Krethak said to his lieutenant. They bond like pack animals. This will require different methods. Dr. Ryan Cooper was taking mental notes of everything he saw. The guards moved slowly, and their reflexes seemed poor. Their weapons were powerful, but heavy. Most importantly, they seemed confused by human behavior. Medic Sarah Jones moved through the crowd, checking on injured colonists. She was also passing quiet messages between people. Stay calm. Follow orders for now. Captain has a plan, she whispered. The aliens loaded the humans onto large transport vehicles and drove them to a compound filled with gray buildings. Other alien prisoners watched from behind fences. They looked hopeless, like they had given up long ago. How long have you been here? Jake asked a tall, blue-skinned creature. Time has no meaning in this place, the creature replied sadly. My people have been here for 20 cycles. We stopped counting after the first 10. Construction foreman, Mike Torres was studying the buildings and fences. Everything was built for the aliens' height and strength, not for humans. That could be useful, he thought. Inside the compound, the aliens began their psychological torture. They showed videos of other conquered species being experimented on and killed. They wanted the humans to understand their fate and give up hope. Instead, the humans got angry. "They're trying to scare us," whispered Communications Officer Helen Garcia to the group around her. "Don't let them see fear. Show them nothing." The aliens put the humans to work in factories making weapons and ships. The work was hard and dangerous, designed to break their spirits. But construction foreman Torres organized the workers into teams. They helped each other and found ways to slow down production without getting caught. "Clumsy humans," the guards would say when machines broke down or parts went missing. They didn't realize it was sabotage. Dr. Cooper was assigned to medical research, where he learned about Zephyrian biology. Their bones were lighter than human bones. Their muscles were weaker. Most importantly, they healed very slowly from injuries. "They're not as tough as they pretend to be," Cooper told Jake during a brief moment alone in the workyard. "They're actually quite fragile." Meanwhile, Helen Garcia had been studying the communication systems in the factory. She found a way to access the quantum transmitter that connected to deep space networks. Working at night when the guards were fewer, she began sending a coded message back toward Earth. The message contained everything they had learned about Zephyrian technology, weaknesses, and the location of Nexus 7. If any humans survived what was coming, at least Earth would know the truth. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bradley had been a Marine before joining the colony mission. He began teaching other colonists basic fighting skills during rest periods. They used exercise as cover, but really they were learning how to fight with their hands and simple tools. "Remember," Bradley told his students quietly, "they expect us to be weak. That's our advantage." The aliens noticed that human productivity was lower than expected, but they blamed it on human stupidity. They didn't realize the humans were learning their routines, studying their technology, and planning. Chef Linda Brown worked in the food preparation area and discovered that certain human spices were actually toxic to Zephyrians. She began collecting and hiding these substances, thinking they might be useful later. After 2 weeks of captivity, Krethak decided to escalate his methods. The standard torture wasn't working on humans like it did on other species. He needed to break them completely. "Bring me their leader," he ordered his guards. They dragged Captain Martinez to a special chamber filled with alien devices designed to extract information from prisoners' minds. The process was supposed to learn all of a person's knowledge while destroying their ability to resist. "Your species will tell us everything," Krethak said with satisfaction. "Every weakness, every fear, every secret of your pathetic world." But as the machines began their work on Jake, something unexpected happened. The captain had trained his mind for this possibility during the journey to Nexus 7. Instead of trying to resist the machines, he fed them false information while protecting the real secrets. The aliens learned about fake human weaknesses and imaginary Earth defenses. They thought they were breaking Jake's mind, but really he was manipulating theirs. While this was happening, the other humans were becoming more organized. Kevin Blake had created a secret communication network using tapped pipes and hidden messages. Sarah Jones was teaching people basic medical skills in case they got hurt fighting. The aliens grew frustrated as their usual methods continued to fail. Other conquered species had broken within days. Humans had been prisoners for weeks and were still causing problems. "Perhaps we need a demonstration," Krethak told his guards. "Execute one of their leaders publicly. Fear will break them when pain has failed." He chose Mary Watson, the kind teacher who had helped other colonists stay calm. The aliens thought killing a weak elderly human would terrify the others into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. As the guards dragged Mary to the execution platform, every human in the compound was watching. The aliens expected to see fear and defeat in their eyes. Instead, they saw something that made them step back in confusion. They saw rage. The execution platform stood in the center of the compound where all prisoners could see it. Krethak had used it many times before to break the spirit of conquered species. Today he planned to break the humans. Mary Watson stood on the platform, with her hands tied behind her back. She was 70 years old, a retired schoolteacher who had joined the colony mission to help educate children on their new world. Now she was about to die as an example to others. "Let this be a lesson to all humans," Krethak announced through speakers across the compound. "Obey or suffer the same fate." Mary looked out at the crowd of her fellow colonists. She saw fear, in some faces, but also something else. She saw determination. She smiled at them and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Remember who we are. Remember what we came here to build. Don't let them win." Krethak raised his weapon and fired. Mary Watson fell to the ground, dead. The aliens expected screaming and crying. They expected the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, something happened that no Zephyrian had ever seen before. The humans got quiet. Completely quiet. 2,000 people stood in absolute silence, staring at the aliens with cold hatred in their eyes. The guards began to shift nervously. This was not the reaction they were used to. "Get back to work," Krethak ordered. "All of you now." Nobody moved. Dr. Ryan Cooper stepped forward first, then Engineer Kevin Blake. One by one, every human in the compound walked toward the platform where Mary's body lay. "I said get back to work," Krethak shouted, raising his weapon. Chief Engineer Alan Tucker was the first to speak. No, it was a simple word, but it changed everything. The aliens had conquered dozens of species over thousands of years. None had ever said no after witnessing an execution. The guards opened fire on the crowd, but the humans scattered in all directions. They had been studying the compound for weeks and knew every hiding place, every weak point in the fences. Kevin Blake led a group toward the generator building while Mike Torres took others to the vehicle depot. They moved with purpose, not panic. This wasn't random violence. This was a plan. Former police officer Rick Santos had been teaching small groups of colonists about urban warfare during their rest periods. Now those lessons saved lives as humans used cover and movement to avoid alien weapons. The first target was the power grid. Alan Tucker and computer specialist Jenny Adams had been studying the alien electrical systems for weeks. They knew exactly which cables to cut to shut down the security barriers. The lights went out across the compound. In the darkness, humans moved like ghosts. They knew the terrain better than their captors now. The aliens had night vision equipment, but they had never needed to use it for hunting prisoners before. Chemistry professor Linda Brown and demolitions expert Carl Johnson had been working together in secret, creating explosive devices from cleaning, supplies, and industrial chemicals. The first bomb destroyed the main guard tower. The aliens began to panic. This was not how conquered species were supposed to behave. Prisoners were supposed to submit after demonstrations of power, not fight. "Back harder. Send reinforcements," Krethak radioed to the orbital ships. "The humans are rioting." But it wasn't a riot. It was a revolution. Captain Jake Martinez had escaped from the interrogation chamber during the confusion. The aliens had been so confident in their mind-reading machines that they barely guarded him. He found Lieutenant Colonel Bradley organizing defensive positions using overturned tables and machinery. "Status report," Jake said. "We control the north and east sections. Tucker's team has the power plant. Santos is leading raids on the armory," Bradley replied. "Casualties are light so far, but we need weapons." Dr. Cooper appeared with a group of rescued prisoners from other species. "Captain, I've made contact with the other captives. Some want to join us." The tall blue alien Jake had spoken to earlier stepped forward. "My name is Zarn. My people have waited 20 years for someone to fight back. We will help you." More alien prisoners emerged from their barracks. Not all of them joined the humans, but enough did to make a difference. They knew the Zephyrian technology and weak points that humans hadn't discovered yet. The battle spread beyond the main compound as human teams struck other facilities across Nexus 7. Helen Garcia had managed to activate a communication network that linked all the prison camps on the planet. "This is Captain Martinez to all human units. Execute Phoenix Protocol. Phoenix Protocol was something they had developed in secret. If open rebellion began, every human would simultaneously strike at critical infrastructure across the planet. The aliens would face not one uprising, but dozens. Former astronaut Frank Miller led a team that captured alien shuttles at the spaceport. He had studied their flight systems and found them surprisingly simple compared to human spacecraft. These ships are built for comfort, not combat, he told his team. They never expected to fight inside their own territory. The Zephyrians tried to use their standard crowd control methods, but humans responded differently than other species. Tear gas didn't affect them as much. Sonic weapons designed for alien hearing ranges were less effective on human ears. Most importantly, humans didn't break when their leaders were targeted. When the aliens killed officers, the soldiers kept fighting. When they killed soldiers, the civilians picked up weapons. Combat medic Carol White had discovered something important while treating wounded fighters. Human blood chemistry was different, enough from other species that Zephyrian medical scanners couldn't track them accurately. "We're invisible to their medical sensors," she told Jake. "They can't tell how many of us are wounded or where we are." By dawn, the humans controlled half of the main compound and 3 other prison facilities. The aliens had called for more reinforcements, but those ships would take time to arrive. Sub-Commander Krithak stood in his command center, staring at reports of human attacks across the planet. In one night, his perfectly controlled prison world had become a war zone. "How is this possible?" he asked his communications officer. "They are a primitive species. They have no advanced weapons." "Sir," the officer replied nervously, "they don't seem to need advanced weapons. They are using our own systems against us." On the main screen, security cameras showed human fighters moving through the compound with captured alien weapons. But more disturbing was how they moved. Like predators hunting prey, the humans had stopped being victims. Now they were the hunters, and the Zephyrians were learning what it felt like to be afraid. News of the human rebellion spread across the Zephyrian Confederacy like wildfire. High Commander Vextal sat in his flagship's command center, reading reports that seemed impossible to believe. "Nexus 7 has fallen?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Not completely, sir, but the humans control most of the planet. They have freed prisoners from 12 facilities and captured our equipment. Worse, other species are joining them." Vextal slammed his 4 fists on the table. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever successfully rebelled after being processed. The Zephyrians had perfected the art of breaking civilizations. "How many ships have we lost?" 17 shuttles, 3 transport vessels, and a patrol cruiser. The humans are using our own weapons against us with surprising skill. On Nexus 7, Captain Jake Martinez stood in the captured command center, watching status reports flow in from across the planet. His people had taken control of 6 prison complexes and were advancing on 3 more. "Sir, we're getting communications from other worlds," reported Helen Garcia from her makeshift radio station. "The rebellion is spreading." Dr. Ryan Cooper entered carrying data tablets filled with information from the alien computers. "Captain, you need to see this. The Zephyrian Confederacy is much larger than we thought, but it's also weaker." Jake studied the star charts Cooper had found. The Confederacy controlled hundreds of worlds, but most were prison planets or slave colonies. Very few were actual Zephyrian homeworlds. "They're spread too thin," Jake realized. "Their whole empire depends on fear and quick victories. When that fails, they have nothing." Former astronaut Frank Miller had been busy with the captured alien ships. He entered the command center with grease on his hands and excitement in his eyes. "Captain, these ships are amazing. Fast, powerful, and surprisingly easy to fly. But they have one major weakness." "What's that?" "They're not built for real combat. The Zephyrians never had to fight equals before. Their ships are designed for intimidation and prisoner transport, not battle." Lieutenant Colonel Bradley joined them with tactical reports. "Sir, we have 1,500 humans combat ready, plus about 300 alien allies. The enemy has maybe 800 guards left on the planet, but they're getting reinforcements." "How long until those reinforcements arrive?" 3 days, maybe 4. "But Captain, there's something else. The distress signal Helen sent is working. We're getting responses from human space." Jake felt hope surge through him. Earth is coming? Better than that, sir. Admiral Patricia Harris is leading a rescue fleet with new warships. They'll be here in 2 weeks. The Zephyrians tried one more assault on the human strongholds. Sub-Commander Krethak led 300 elite guards in a direct attack on the main compound. He expected to face desperate prisoners with stolen weapons. Instead, he found organized soldiers who fought like they had been born for war. Rick Santos had turned the compound into a fortress. Every entrance was trapped. Every corridor was a kill zone. The humans used guerrilla tactics that confused the aliens completely. They're everywhere and nowhere, one guard reported over the radio. We take a building and they attack from behind. We chase them and they vanish. Combat medic Carol White had set up aid stations throughout the compound. She discovered that human adaptability extended to medical care as well. Humans recovered from injuries faster than the aliens expected and returned to fighting sooner. The assault failed completely. Krethak lost half his remaining forces and gained nothing. Worse, the humans captured more equipment and prisoners who provided intelligence about Zephyrian operations. Interrogate the prisoners, Jake ordered. Find out everything about their command structure. Former police officer Rick Santos handled the interrogations. He discovered that Zephyrian society was based on strict hierarchy and fear. When lower ranks saw their superiors defeated, they began to panic. Their whole system depends on never losing, Santos reported. Now that we've beaten them, their own people are starting to doubt them. The proof came when Zephyrian ships began retreating from outer system patrols. They were pulling back to protect their core worlds, abandoning outposts and slave colonies. Engineer Kevin Blake had been working with captured alien technology, improving it with human innovations. The weapons became more efficient, the computers faster, the ships more maneuverable. These aliens never had to compete, Blake told his team. Their technology is advanced but not optimized. They got lazy because no one ever fought back. Chemistry professor Linda Brown made another important discovery. The psychological drugs the Zephyrians used on other species had no effect on humans. Human brain chemistry was too different. That's why their standard methods failed on us, she explained to Dr. Cooper. We're immune to their mind control. On the 4th day, the Zephyrian reinforcements arrived. 12 warships dropped out of hyperspace, ready to crush the human rebellion once and for all. High Commander Vextal himself led the fleet. He had come to personally oversee the destruction of these troublesome humans. Broadcasting to all human forces, his voice echoed across the planet. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist further and we will make you suffer for generations. Captain Martinez stood in the main compound's communication center, surrounded by his officers and allies. Around him were humans who had been farmers, teachers, engineers, and parents just weeks ago. Now they were warriors. Broadcasting to all Zephyrian forces, Jake replied. You made one mistake when you captured us. You gave us time to learn who you really are. Now we know the truth. You're not the mighty conquerors you pretend to be. You're just bullies who pick on those weaker than yourselves. The communication channel crackled with Vextal's anger. Impossible. Humans are a primitive species. You cannot defeat us. You're about to find out how wrong you are, Jake said calmly. You wanted to make us your prey. Instead, you've made us your enemy. That was the last mistake you'll ever make. The orbital bombardment began within minutes, but the humans were ready. They had spent days preparing for this moment, and they were no longer the frightened colonists who had landed on Nexus 7. They were something else now. Something the Zephyrians had never faced before. They were humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The orbital bombardment turned the sky orange with fire. Vextal's warships pounded the surface of Nexus 7, trying to destroy the human rebellion before it could spread further. But the humans were no longer hiding in buildings waiting to die. They had spent weeks learning to think like their enemies, and now they were ready to turn the hunt around. Frank Miller led a squadron of captured alien fighters up from hidden launch sites. The Zephyrians had never expected prisoners to steal their ships and learn to fly them. Their orbital defense was designed to keep ships from escaping, not to fight skilled pilots coming from below. Remember, Miller told his pilots over the radio, These ships weren't built for dogfights. Stay fast, stay moving, and aim for their engines. The human fighters struck like wasps attacking a giant. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought with desperate courage while the Zephyrians fought with confused panic. On the surface, Captain Jake Martinez coordinated the defense from his command bunker. Reports came in from across the planet as human forces struck at Zephyrian installations with surgical precision. "Sir, we have incoming ships," Helen Garcia announced. "Multiple contacts, but these are different. They're human designs." Jake felt his heart leap. "Admiral Harris?" The communication screen flickered to life, showing a stern woman in Earth Fleet uniform. Admiral Patricia Harris looked tired but determined. "Captain Martinez, this is Admiral Harris with the Earth Rescue Fleet. We received your distress signal and came as fast as we could. What's your status?" "Admiral, we're no longer prisoners. We control most of the planet and we're currently engaged with Zephyrian forces in orbit." Harris looked surprised. "You're fighting them?" "Captain, these aliens have technology far beyond ours." "Not anymore, Admiral. We've learned their weaknesses. They're not as advanced as they pretend to be. Most importantly, they're not used to fighting anyone who fights back." The Earth fleet consisted of 20 ships, including experimental warships built with lessons learned from Jake's original distress signal. They had better weapons and stronger armor than anything humans had built before, but they were still outnumbered by the Zephyrian forces. "Admiral," Jake said, "I'm transmitting tactical data on Zephyrian ships and weapons. We've been studying them for weeks. Trust me, they have critical weaknesses." High Commander Vextal watched in growing horror as the human fleet engaged his forces. The Earth ships fought with tactics he had never seen before. They coordinated like a pack of predators, covering each other's weaknesses and striking as a unit. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Their technology is primitive." "Sir," his tactical officer replied nervously, "they're not using superior technology. They're using superior strategy. And sir, our own ships are turning against us." Was true. Frank Miller's captured fighters were attacking Zephyrian ships from behind while the Earth fleet hit them from the front. The aliens found themselves trapped between two forces that seemed to anticipate their every move. The battle turned when engineer Kevin Blake activated his secret weapon. He had spent weeks modifying the planetary defense grid, turning it from a prison wall into a massive cannon array. Energy beams lanced up from the surface, striking Zephyrian ships with devastating accuracy. The aliens had built the weapons to keep prisoners in, never imagining those same weapons could be turned against them. 3 Zephyrian warships exploded in the first volley. The rest began to retreat, but the human forces were ready for that. 2. "All ships execute Hunter Protocol," Admiral Harris ordered. The Earth fleet spread out in a web formation, cutting off escape routes while the captured alien fighters harassed fleeing ships. It was a textbook hunting pattern, designed to prevent prey from escaping. Vextal's flagship was surrounded within minutes. His remaining ships were either destroyed or surrendering. The mighty Zephyrian fleet had been defeated by the species they had considered weakest of all. "Commander Vextal," Jake's voice came over the communication system. "You wanted to negotiate with primitive humans. Now you can." The Zephyrian commander appeared on screen, his forearms shaking with rage and fear. "This is impossible. You are inferior beings. How did you defeat us?" "You made 3 mistakes," Jake replied calmly. "First, you underestimated us. Second, you gave us time to learn about you. Third, and most important, you chose the wrong species to hunt." "We offer surrender," Vextal said quickly. "We will return to our territory and leave your species alone." Jake looked around at his officers, at Helen Garcia, who had risked everything to call for help, at Dr. Cooper, who had learned alien weaknesses while being tortured, at all the humans who had refused to break under pressure. "No," Jake said simply. "What? Do you mean no? You're predators. You hunt innocent species for sport and profit. Predators don't get to choose when the hunt ends." Admiral Harris took over the communication. "Commander Vextal, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity and multiple other species. Your fleet will be impounded, your crews imprisoned, and your confederacy will face justice." "You cannot do this," Vextal protested. We are the Zephyrian Confederacy. We have ruled this sector for 3,000 years. Not anymore, Harris replied. This sector is now under human protection. The final battle was short and decisive. The remaining Zephyrian forces surrendered rather than face destruction. Their legendary invincibility was broken, and word spread quickly through their empire. On dozens of worlds, enslaved species rose up against their Zephyrian masters. The confederacy that had seemed unbeatable crumbled within weeks as their own victims turned against them. Jake Martinez stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking down at Nexus 7. The prison planet was now the headquarters of a new alliance between humans and the species they had freed. Captain, Dr. Cooper joined him at the window. The other liberated worlds are asking for our help. They want to form some kind of federation. What do you think we should do? Cooper smiled. I think we came out here looking for a new home. Instead, we found a new purpose. Admiral Harris appeared beside them. The President of Earth has asked me to offer you a promotion, Captain. Admiral Martinez has a nice sound to it, Jake thought, about the journey that had brought them here. They had left Earth as desperate colonists fleeing a dying world. Now they were the protectors of an entire sector of space. What about Earth? He asked. Earth is fine, Harris replied. Better than fine, actually. Your distress signal included detailed information about advanced technology. Our scientists have been having a field day. We've made more progress in the last few months than in the previous 50 years. And the Zephyrians? Scattered. Broken. Most of their leadership is in prison, and their former slaves are hunting down the rest. They went from apex predators to endangered species practically overnight. Jake nodded, satisfied. The aliens had made one final mistake when they chose humans as their prey. They had awakened something they couldn't control or understand. They had awakened humanity's protective instinct. The species that had once seemed like easy prey had become the guardians of the galaxy, and every other predator species in the sector was learning a new lesson. Humans were not prey. Humans were not victims. Humans were the apex predators now.